So please help me welcome to the stage Rusdon Ray. Hey, just let me know when you need help on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Shane and Randy for inviting me and letting me come and speak. Just to let you guys know, I'm not a professional speaker. I don't get paid to go out and speak and everything. I'm just an average Joe American citizen and construction worker. Born and raised here in Arizona. The only time I've really left to live anywhere else was on my LDS mission to Mexico for 2 years, where I learned to speak Spanish and share the gospel of Christ down there to them. And it was an awesome mission. And then when I came back, I've been drawing house plans full time. My dad is here. He taught me everything I know from the time I was born. I grew up doing construction, remodeling, roofing, framing, electrical. And then when I got back for my mission, full time since 2001, drawn custom homes, remodels, additions, garages, all that. So there's a funny story. When I was 16, I was framing on a crew, and I was brand new. So I knew a little bit about construction, but nothing about building full houses, framing, and all that. So anyways, I was the gopher. And I think it was like within the first 3 days, they asked me to go to the truck and find a board stretcher. And so I was like, okay. I was the gopher. I was constantly running and grabbing tools. So I ran to the truck and I was looking all around, and I looked and looked, and I found a board clamp, and it looked like a board stretcher. So I just took it back to them. I said, "Is this a board stretcher?" And they all laughed at me, and they said, "There's no such thing as a board stretcher," and they just thought that was so funny. But since then, I've learned a lot more. I draw custom homes, but my hobby is fighting tyranny. And it's not just Agenda 21, but it's everywhere we can find it. We're fighting Common Core, really big. My sister-in-law, Jenna Ray, she's the leader of the Common Core, Mothers Against Common Core in Arizona. And then also we fight, we see this federal takeover of all the organizations, of all the production that we see in the country. We see it through the healthcare is being taken over through Obamacare. Education is being taken over through Common Core. And the banks have been taken over through the bailouts, the Bush bailouts. The car companies have been bailed out, which means they're now under federal control. They're tied to the strings of the handouts. And now we're seeing the local police departments also being taken over. Through the 1033 program, they're all given free military equipment. And if you research that, almost every police department has opted into that. The free equipment was too much for them to resist. And so we've researched it. Gilbert, Queen Creek, Maricopa County, Pinal County, every single police department that we've looked into has also ordered these military equipment. Gilbert ordered 2 of them, and we fought it hard, and they really had no good excuse. The town council didn't even know about it. The police department just ordered it underneath without the mayor even knowing. So we've been fighting that as well. But most people don't realize how Agenda 21, how this federal and international agenda gets into the walls of our own home, where they can control everything that we use to build our homes and everything we use to run our homes. And that is done through the building codes, because many people believe that the building codes are there to keep us safe. You know, for our health and safety. That's why the building codes are there. And for the history of the United States, the building codes have been very minimal, all the way into the 90s. And so for the most part of our nation's history, that's been the case. You know, they've been very minor. They haven't really held up building houses and all that. But that is no longer the case. So I'll give a brief history on the codes. The codes are basically, here's my wife bringing me the code book. This is one of the 8 books that are now mandated on us to build homes. But I'll explain how we got here. Thanks, Emily. Okay, so the building codes are basically the compilation of all the good building practices that we have learned. The free market has prospered, and we've come a long ways. We've built a lot of houses, and we've learned a lot from our mistakes and our good ideas. And we've compiled them into books. And these books, people have put those good ideas into the building codes. And those building codes have been what we've used as a guide. But with all the compilation of all those codes, it's the summation of basically the prosperous country that we live in. All those good ideas coming together in one place that everybody can go to see how to build a house. But when we compile all those good ideas, is it a good idea to then mandate those as law? So we compile them all into one book, and then we go to government and we say, okay, look, I've compiled all these good ideas. Will you pass them as law? And they're like, well, I don't understand construction. They look at it, they're like, oh, it looks good to me. They pass it without reading or understanding it. The same way that the Obamacare is being passed, the same way that Common Core is being passed, they get all these practices for good medical. They take these medical books, and now they're saying Obamacare is going to be over 20,000 pages long, and they're passing it as law onto the doctors. Well, the same thing's happening through the building. I'm going to show you this. This is just a small picture of the building codes, the number of pages. Does anybody know when Agenda 21 was written? 92. So if you look at this chart, 92 is right here. Number of pages. The building code is about 300 pages. And this is where we come now. This one book is up to over 900 pages, almost 1,000 pages since Agenda 21 has gone into effect. So, yeah, so that's good. And you guys have seen this. My great uncles told me stories about building. They said when they were first starting out, somebody wanted to build a house. They would call them one week, like on a weekend or Thursday or Friday. They're like, I want to build a house in your subdivision. They're like, okay, great. We'll start footings on Monday. And they would start building the house, and they would have it done in a month or two, and then call for a final inspection, pay a $6 permit fee, and be done. That's what it was like here in the valley. So, and you guys have all lived through this. I feel like I'm about less than half of your guys' age here. But this is a good movie preview that was written, that was made about exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. Oh, okay, we'll give them a second here. Okay, so in the 90s, there was multiple building codes throughout the United States. The Universal Building Code, the ICBO codes, but in 2000, all the codes were consolidated into one set of building codes. The international codes, International Residential Code. And this is one of 8 books. So this is the residential code. They have the International Plumbing Code, the International Mechanical Code, the International Energy Code, and now they have the International Green Code. And each book is at least a few hundred pages long in addition to these 1,000 pages. And you add all these books up, and it's over 4,000 pages that we have to follow. And this preview here shows the result of these building codes.
What do you think would have happened to us if we'd never met?
Oh, we probably would have found someone else.
You think?
No. checkup go?
Clean bill of health for both of us.
Doctor didn't say anything about her memory?
I forgot to ask him.
For two people who still love each other.
We've already been through 3 cords of wood this winter, barely keeping this place warm.
And for a man who's still fiercely independent.
I was thinking of building us something smaller, more manageable.
We don't have the money.
The only thing he wants
If I did the work myself, we could afford it.
is to do what's best for her.
You absolutely certain you want to do this, old man?
Age is just an abstraction, not a straitjacket.
You definitely need a permit.
Why would I need a permit? This is my land.
I'll just need to see your plans.
I don't have any plans.
Well, how are you going to build a house without any plans?
The way I've been doing it all my life.
Mr. Morrison, there are a number of building code violations.
You're telling me that my material is substandard?
There is zero leeway on this. Deal with the violations, or I will bulldoze this place.
Is that a threat?
No, it's the law.
When did we become a country of bureaucrats?
It's been obvious for a while now that Mama's getting worse.
You think I'm not aware of that? That's why I'm building the house.
What if I forget everything?
You'll still be my Irene.
Promise.
Never broken a promise to you yet.
You understand you're going to have to appear at court?
I certainly do.
Have you seen the Telegraph Journal yet today?
Oh, why?
Well, your father made the front page.
I'm worried that our luck's beginning to run out.
Do you understand that you could go to jail?
Academy Award nominee James Cromwell and Academy Award nominee Geneviève Bujold.
Either I'm going to jail or I'm going home.
Still mine.
I love you.
Okay, so I didn't even know that movie came out. So when I saw that, I was like, that's exactly what we've been fighting. Okay, so there was a guy in Gilbert for a zoning violation who was...
When your name is Earnhardt, being fast is key. That's also true for Goody's powder and Goody's for shot.
Okay, if we skip this ad and then pause it. Okay, we should be good. Okay, so there's a guy in Gilbert, his name was Gordon Heap, and we were drawing his plans, and he was in the process of trying to comply with the building codes and the zoning codes for a small structure he had in his backyard that his neighbors had no problem with, that the HOA couldn't even see, but somehow the city found out about it. Well, in the process of trying to comply, he missed a court date because he was out of town, and he was arrested in front of his wife and kids on Mother's Day and handcuffed and hauled off to jail because he wasn't complying. Most people don't go to court for the building codes because it's easier to just comply. No matter what the cost is, no matter what it is, you just comply or else your house will be bulldozed, just like they said in the movie. And that's the same threat that we're facing locally if we don't comply with every aspect of the building codes. So, what is some of the stuff that we now have to deal with in the codes? Okay, so some of it is, most of it is now having to do with energy. So the type of windows we install, they have to be the right energy rating. You have to get manual J calculations. You now have to size your AC unit by a mechanical engineer. So you take your plans to a mechanical engineer and they do calcs on the type of insulation you have, the type of windows you have, and then they size your AC unit. And it's not to make sure your AC unit's big enough, but to make sure it's not too big. So to make sure it's small enough, not too big to ruin the environment. Fire sprinklers. In Gilbert, they had a rule: no flagpoles over 20 feet, drains and window wells, carbon monoxide detectors. These carbon monoxide detectors have sensors on them, and they have to go in every bedroom. They're the wireless sensor detectors. Air infiltration designs, they make you do a system where you to build a house, they make you do a blower door test. They hook up a fan to your front door, seal everything, and then blow air into your house, and then it has to only leak so much air. And so you have to pay for that calculation, the certification. There's another $1,000 right there. Air duct leakage tests. Now your light bulbs all have to be energy efficient. And if you don't have the right type of light bulbs installed in your house, 75% of them in the 2012 code have to be energy efficient. So if you're building your house, you don't have the right type of light bulbs, you do not have the right to live in your house until you switch them out. If you were to resist, you would go to court, and if you resist that, the police could haul you off to jail. And that's the power they have on every little aspect. Current homes, there's a international maintenance code to deal with those, and it's increasing as well. And so basically the international maintenance code is not quite as to the point of a new house, but that's where they have the ability to go and inspect an existing house, and if you are not up to code, they can kick you out of your house, and the same way they can keep you out of your house for a new home. So that international maintenance code is the one that is even worse than the codes that we're dealing with now. So your appliances all have to be Energy Star, the wireless, or the what do they call it? The programmable appliances. So your dishwasher, your refrigerator, your range, and all that has to be ran through what is now required is your smart meter. And so you know how people can set the temperature on their cabin before they get there and make sure it's warm when they show up. The government is now involved in controlling that. So now they will be able to read what temperature your house is set at through your appliances and through your smart meter and into what is now required, a programmable thermostat. And on and on and on. Now they require tamper-resistant. Were you going to say something, Randy?
Just wanted to ask you, based on your expertise, the bottom line, what would this add to the cost of the home?
Well, if you figure in, now it takes probably, it used to take, the name of our company is GER Drafting Service, but our slogan is House Plans in a Week. And that came back in, when did we come up with that slogan? In the 90s? Or was that early 2000? 92. House Plans in a Week. So we were able to draw sometimes full custom plans for a custom home in a week. Now the process takes a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks to draw the same set of plans, because now we have to do all the calculations, the electrical calcs, the mechanical, now we have to take to an engineer, the structural calculations, the soils report, the pad certification, on and on and on. All this stuff that has been proven to not be needed. And so you add in that, so a month for plans, 2 months for the permitting process, that's 3 months. Now the process to build a custom home takes about 6 months rather than 2 to 3 months. So that alone, if you add in the cost of that, permits in Gilbert for, this was a nice size house, it was about 6,000 square feet, but permits for it were $26,000 alone. And before it used to be like, I don't know, in the 90s, maybe $2,000. And now it's $26,000. So I don't know how many, how fast exponentially that's increasing. Queen Creek's about the same place. About for a 3,000 square foot house, it was $15,000, and that's before you even break ground. So you pay for that, then you pay for your plans, your engineering, your certifications. You're into it about $30,000 before you can even start building, plus the 6 months that it takes to get there. And so if people think that this is not pushing out beginner home buyers, they're not living reality, because it is pushing out many people from wanting to start a house. They'd rather just live in an apartment or a small house or a tract house, go live in a small subdivision that's being built. So that's, and this is one of our latest rejection notices from Queen Creek. Randy Brown was the owner, and we submitted the plans, and this is, we used to get our plans approved over 50% in county would get them approved 90% of the time without any red lines whatsoever. Now, Queen Creek gave us this packet of red lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4 full pages of red lines. The structural items that they're supposed to be focused on is this little section right here. So you go turn back through all these energy item requirements. This is energy efficiency. This is one of the notes. It says here, note on plans where the primary heating system is a forced air furnace, at least one thermostat per dwelling unit shall be capable of controlling the heating and cooling system on a daily schedule to maintain different temperatures throughout the day. The thermostat shall initially be programmed with a heating temperature set point no higher than 70 degrees and a cooling temperature set point no lower than 78 degrees. So you have to have the programmable thermostat or you can't move in, and now it has to be programmed to the right temperature. If it's not set to the right temperature, you can't move in. Now, right now, they're just saying initially programmed. So they tell you, oh, you can just change it when you move in. But we all know where they're going. This is stair-stepped, and they're going to program it so that we can't change it. And if we do change it, they can read it through the smart meter and come in and serve you with a violation, a stop work order, or condemn your house for not being suitable because it doesn't meet the code. Here's another one about the light bulbs. Light bulbs are now mandated. Note on plans a minimum of 75% of the lamps, which is light bulbs, in permanently installed lighting fixtures shall be high efficiency lamps, or a minimum of 75% of the permanently installed lighting fixture shall contain only high efficiency lamps. And that's only 2 of 4 pages of red lines that we have to add to the plans. So on that one, we sent out an email, blasted out to a bunch of people, and this is where I think the solution is us locally reacting to it, standing up for our rights. We blasted that out and we pounded Queen Creek, and they were able to get their plans approved, and they said they would not enforce that aspect of the code, which is pretty big. So anyways, in 2001, when we started drawing plans, and when I started drawing full-time, the codes weren't that bad, but they incrementally grew on us, and we started seeing the international codes, and we had to start putting this on our plans. And we were, for the most part, just saying, okay, put this on the plans, you can get them approved. So we're like, okay, so we just type it in on the computer, print out the plans, they get them approved. And they keep coming out with more and more codes, and we're like, where are these codes coming from? They're called international. Obviously, they're passed internationally or at the national level. And so we try to find out who passes these codes. Then we find out that these codes, although they are written on a national level, they're passed by our town councils. So the town managements come and they say, we want to be on the latest codes. Everybody's adopting the 2000 International Residential Code. So here it is on the agenda. Can you please approve it? And the council, the 7 members, they raise their hand and say, yes, we want to be on the latest codes. So who doesn't want to be on the latest codes? So they pass it. And we realized, wow, they're getting passed on the local level, then we can fight it. We can just blow it up and tell them in Gilbert that people are passing thousands of pages of rules and regulations without reading or understanding them. And so here's an example of what we started to do. So if you could take one and pass it around. Us being just construction workers started acting, seeing what can we do to stop these codes. We, as a draftsman, everybody doesn't know about these codes being passed. But we as draftsmen, we do know about them. And I was raised on the constitutional principles. I took classes from Earl Taylor. He's the president of National Center for Constitutional Studies. I believe Shane Krauser promotes his books, The 5,000-Year Leap and The Making of America. So I was raised on those. And so when we found out that these codes were being passed, we couldn't just sit back and do nothing. So we started organizing. We started emailing all our friends and neighbors and we started making flyers. And this was the flyer we put out, and we took to the LD, our Republican LD meeting, and got a lot of support from them. And we just started building our grassroots support. And we had hundreds, over 100 emails sent to the town council. We had over a couple hundred, didn't we? A couple hundred emails. And then we had the council meetings filled with people. And it was interesting, the opposition we started to face. We're just construction workers here working from our office sending out emails, and we found out that Gilbert Town Council received an email from Washington, D.C. from a guy named William Fay from the energy company in Washington, that they're centered in Washington, D.C., sent an email telling them to pass the energy code in Gilbert. And then before the town council vote, we were organizing a big resistance. We had lots of people going. We had blasted the town council with emails telling them to not pass the international codes, that you guys haven't read them, you guys don't understand them, you guys don't realize what's in them, and we're telling them everything that's in them, and they were still planning on passing them. This guy who came in from out of town, his name was Deacon Taylor. He called me up on the phone and acted like he was on my side, he obviously read our website because he was repeating all the same rhetoric that we would repeat, cussing out. I could tell he wasn't a true constitutional conservative, grounded in principle, because every other word was a swear word. So I knew right off he wasn't sincere. But he was cussing out town council, he was cussing out Congress for passing thousands of pages of bills without reading or understanding them. And I was trying to get to the point, why was he calling me? I said, so do you support us in what we're doing? He's like, well, I just think town management should be able to do whatever they feel is necessary to protect the health and safety of the people. And I said, anything? And he said, yeah, anything they feel is necessary. And I said, he says, I think that their job should be limited to one paragraph. That's it. Protect the health and safety of the people. And I said, that is opening it up to whatever they want to enforce. What if they want to enforce the international codes? He's all, well, then they should be able to enforce them. And I saw where he was coming from. He said, I just don't think you should go to the town council meeting tonight to oppose town management and town council in passing the codes. And I said, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but we're still going to go and we're still going to fight this to the end. And so my brother was like, that was an interesting phone call. Searched Deacon Taylor. Pops up. He's the face of the green movement across the country. He's called the Comfort Cowboy. He had heard about this fight to stop the energy code in Gilbert. We were trying to stop the whole family of international codes, the mechanical code, electrical code, plumbing code, all those, saying, stop it where it's at. You guys are now, it's no longer building and safety codes. You guys are now adding the green movement to it. So he came in to try to stop us and try to discourage us from going. Anyways, we went to the meeting, and we didn't get everything we wanted. They didn't stop the entire family of I-codes, but they singled out the energy code, and they made that optional, which means it's unenforceable in Gilbert. And so that was what William Fay from Washington, D.C. was trying to get town council to pass, and that's what Jim Deacon came in town to try to coerce us into, or intimidate us into not going to the meeting. And we still, through that, we were able to stop the energy code. So you don't need a mechanical engineer in Gilbert to size your AC unit. You don't have to have the energy efficient light bulbs. You can choose to do that on your own in Gilbert. Did you have a question there? They're not federally mandated, but the energy companies are, in many places they are mandated. Yes, that's one that they're stair-stepping to get there. I didn't even realize that I had a smart meter on my house because I wasn't following all the codes as close as I should have been. I realized my house was built with a smart meter, and now it costs money to go back and switch it out, and they charge you a charge if you don't want a smart meter. Eventually that will be mandated as well through the codes. Many people think that the codes are what gives us our standard of living that we have today in America. If we don't have the codes, we're going to go backwards in time, and we're going to end up like Mexico. And I was like, well, I served in Mexico. We don't want to go back to Mexico, right? I said, well, is that true that our building codes have gotten us to where we are today? I was looking at it, and that is a falsehood that they try to sell us on. These international codes have only been around since 2000, and they've only gotten bad since the 2006 code. And yet they're saying it's because of these codes that we have the nice standard of living that we have. In reality, what has gotten us to the point where we have is our free market economy. There's a principle that says the highest level of prosperity occurs when there's a free market economy and a minimum of government regulation. And so you look back through our history, that is what has gotten us to the point we are now. The story of my uncles, when people wanted to build a house, they would go and they would say, okay, I want to start a house. They would start footings on Monday and have the house finished in a month or two. That was a free market economy with a minimum of government regulations. The houses are still standing today, stronger than the ones we're building now. They were all out of block houses, concrete foundations, and they're great houses. Now they're getting, and now people think, oh, it's because of the building code inspectors that our houses are so safe. And that's definitely not the case. If we want a maximum of government regulation, then we can go to Mexico and see what they have there and see if that's what we want. They are kept down. They do not have freedom and prosperity like we have here. There's a book written called The 5,000-Year Leap. And that kind of explains how for 5,000 years in the world's history, since the beginning of time, man has traveled the same way. They've walked, rode horses, wagon, until America. A spirit of freedom and entrepreneurship was founded. It was protected by law through the Constitution of the United States, and freedom and prosperity flourished. Freedom of religion was protected, and freedom of religion and the prosperity and all the other rights in the Bill of Rights were given, were written into the Constitution to protect them. And then that's what got us to where we are today, not the building codes. And so the building codes is just a compilation of what we've learned how to build houses. So it's a book of great ideas, but should not be mandated. So here is what this is straight from the code book. So I'll also have you pass it out. Grab one, pass it around. Oh, maybe you can pass them down each row. There you go. Oh, let me keep one page of that. Okay. So when we started fighting the code, then we started actually reading it. And then we started really finding some crazy stuff. So here on these, I'll wait till you guys all get a copy of this, on what enforcement power they have over us now. Okay. So while you guys are getting those, how is this connected to Agenda 21? So Agenda 21 has secretly gotten their agenda into the building codes because of our belief that the building codes keep us safe. And so they said, okay, this is an easy avenue to sneak it in. Who is behind it? Have any of you guys heard of ICLEI? Yes. Okay. So ICLEI is, they openly profess they're an enforcement arm of Agenda 21. They're the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. And a lot of people awoke real quickly to Agenda 21 and ICLEI. That ICLEI was the enforcement arm of Agenda 21. They work directly with local governments, and they enforce the aspects of Agenda 21. So people started rejecting ICLEI. So ICLEI is not openly followed in many of the towns here in the valley. So what happened? They started sneaking all their stuff in through the the International Code Council. They're tied directly to ICLEI is now the enforcement arm, or the ICC is now the enforcement arm of ICLEI. So ICLEI is the Global Cities Network, is an enforcement arm of Agenda 21, and it says here, ICLEI pays for scholarships to go to the ICC hearings. They shape national energy policy via ICC final action hearings. Learn how you can shape national energy policy. ICLEI is offering travel scholarships to assist local governments to attend the final action hearing in Atlantic City. So then they pay people to go and lobby to get things into the code, because once it's set in the code, now that all the building codes across the country are consolidated into one international code council, you get that mandated, and it is mandated across the country. So now it's a compilation of big business and big government. So big business goes there and they say, I have a great idea. So I have this great outlet. It's safer than the one we have. Do you guys like it? And they show a picture of a little kid getting shocked with a screwdriver by an outlet, which we've tested out, and a screwdriver doesn't even fit in an outlet that they sell now. And even if you did stick it in, they don't get shocked. It's a misbelief that kids stick things in there and get shocked. Now, if you stick two things in at the same time, it pops. And these are with the old outlets that have been around for 50 years. And they're perfectly safe, and there's been no problems with them. But now they're selling AFCI outlets, arc fault circuit interrupters, which now they trip really easy. I don't know if any of you guys live in a new house, but many of you guys are probably into construction. They flip real easy, and so they're a hassle. A lot of people switch them out. After they move in, they're like, I'm just going to go down to Home Depot and buy some real ones. Now they're coming out with tamper-resistant outlets. So now you install these tamper-resistant outlets, and it's hard to plug something in. And a lot of times, if you get frustrated, you just shove it in, and it breaks something in there, the little safety flap. It's supposed to keep kids from poking things in there when that's not even needed. And now it makes it that outlet from a couple dollars to, how much are they now? Almost $18 a piece. And how many outlets do you have in your house? So there's another $1,000 right there. One of the thousands of codes that we have to follow. That makes no sense.
Just to make that clear, how big business gets in there, they get it into the code, and they have mandated everyone to buy those codes. And so that big business has it.
So once they go in there, they sell it to one person at the International Code Council, you get it mandated, the businesses become billionaires. And so you go there and you mandate your Energy Star rated windows into the code, and now everybody has to update their windows. One crazy thing is that we fought in Gilbert. My mom cooks a lot. They have 35 grandkids now. She cooks large amounts of cookies and bread and all that stuff. On the back porch, she bought on Craigslist a big commercial oven. The 2012 code, that is now illegal. Illegal to have a commercial appliance on a residential property. Even with a permit, it's illegal. It has to be rated for residential. And my dad's called around to all the pizza places and everything. They're like, well, what's the danger of these commercial appliances? Do you get burned? And they're like, well, no. We all wear shorts around here and we never get burned. You can touch the sides and you're perfectly safe. The appliances are perfectly safe. But they're now saying you cannot use them in a residential property. So the mayor said, okay, we'll not pass that aspect of it. But he passed all the codes except for the energy code. And that energy, the commercial appliance item was in the, I believe it was in the electrical code, or it's in the residential code, which was passed. And so he unknowingly, without reading them, passed this code that now makes the commercial appliance that my mom has on the back porch illegal. So if they came to our house and we didn't want to remove it, they could condemn the property because of this one commercial appliance that we have on our back porch. So now they have, so then we get into what's the purpose of these codes. What's their real agenda? What's the purpose of Agenda 21? What's their goal? is to take away personal property rights, undermine home ownership, get away from the idea that you own your house and that you can build your own property, take care of it, manage it, and prosper on your own land. So Agenda 21 has to do with controlling the land. Like Shane Krauser was saying at the beginning, if they control the land, they control us. It was interesting also recently on one of the emails I sent out, this one where we were fighting the programmable thermostats where they can set your temperature now. We sent blasted out to Queen Creek. We got Queen Creek to admit that it was over the top and that they will not enforce the energy code and hold it to the same standard as the building, the structural items. I got an email, or I got a phone call from Ammon Bundy. I had met him here a couple months ago when he was talking about their fight in Nevada. And I looked up to them, and we were packed, ready to go when they had won their fight over there. So we were actually going to go join them, even though we didn't know him. But anyways, I met him at a meeting here later, and so got his email address and put him on my email list. So he was getting my emails, and I didn't even know it. He called me up and said, Rusdon, I just want you to know I support you 100% in what you guys are doing. If I could support you more than that, I would. And if there's anything I can do to help you guys, just let us know. Because it's the same battle we're fighting out here in Nevada. They want to kick us off the land. They want to keep us from using the land. And it's all part of the same agenda. And so he recognized it, even though he's not into building. He's not a scholar in construction. But he recognized it right off that it was the same battle that he was fighting. And I thought that was pretty nice of him to call and support us in that.
Now, I know a lot of people say, read Karl Marx. I do have his book, The Communist Manifesto. And one of the ways to stop capitalism, the very first plank is abolition of private property. So that right there is exactly what Agenda 21's belief is. Abolition of private property.
So how do they abolish private property in America where we believe so strongly in private property? Through zoning, through over-regulation, one step at a time. Okay, so you guys all have this paper. It says down at the bottom, 2015 International Residential Code. Who wants to read where it says unlawful acts? Any volunteers? Right here, this lady right here.
It shall be unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation to erect, construct, alter, extend, repair, move, remove, demolish, or occupy any building, structure, or equipment regulated by this code, or cause same to be done in conflict with or in violation of any other provision of this code.
Is that nice and clear? Anything that is regulated by this code. And now we've gone over some of the things that are regulated. Changing a light bulb. If it's over 50 watts, there's one exception that says if it's under 50 watts, it doesn't count. But changing a light bulb is now regulated by the code. Buying a new appliance is now regulated by the code. Changing out a water heater is now regulated by the code. It's required to, they say it's required to get a permit. And once you get a permit, you have the inspectors come out, and then they can catch other things on the house that are not to code. So anything that is regulated by this code. We don't even know everything that's regulated by them, and that's our profession. So now there's 4,000 pages. Every single aspect of that is regulated. They can kick you out of your house for any one of those. So let's see, I guess, violation of penalties. Who wants to read that one? A little bit lower. A volunteer. Oh, right here. Pink shirt.
With any of the requirements thereof, or who erects, constructs, alters, or repairs a building or structure in violation of the approved construction documents or directive of the building official, or of a permit or certificate issued under the provisions of this code, shall be subject to penalties as prescribed by law.
Okay, so actually I don't have it highlighted here, but also 113.3, just above that last highlighted there, and I'll read it here. It says prosecution of violation. If the notice of violation is not complied with in the time prescribed by such notice, the building official is authorized to request the legal counsel of the jurisdiction to institute the appropriate proceeding at law or in equity to restrain, correct, or abate such violation, or to require the removal or termination of the unlawful occupancy of the building or structure in violation of the provisions of this code or of the order or direction made pursuant thereto. So if you don't have the right outlet, you don't have the right window, you don't have the right insulation, you used, like in the movie, your lumber wasn't stamped by the correct manufacturer, or that stamp had been removed and you can't read it, you have no proof that it was stamped by the engineer, you don't have your trusses stamped by the correct engineer, you didn't get your soils report, your pad certification, they can legally terminate the unlawful occupancy of the resident.
Doesn't this sound like the King Stamp Act that really put a fly in the ointment?
Yeah. Yes, the Stamp Act, where they said you can't do anything without the King's stamped paper. We kind of related Common Core to that, the AZ merit test. If you don't take the King's test, then you can't go to school here. But that's exactly what this is. If you do not do exactly what they say, or use the King stamped paper, you don't have his certifications, his letters from the engineers, you're not allowed to live on your house, in your house.
Do you feel that reverse mortgages are part of this?
Oh, yeah, the reverse mortgages is basically to take away home ownership. Because what it does, the reverse mortgage is, it's real tempting. I'm sure, especially when you get later in life, you're like, okay, now I can take out all the money, but then you won't be able to pass it on to anybody. It's now taken, and it now belongs to the bank, which is now, with the bank bailouts, has been taken over by the federal government, and so now they own that property. And now they'll probably rent it instead of selling it to the next owner. And so now parents aren't passing on property to the next generation. It's all being taken from them.
Light rail is also part of this, correct?
Yes, because eventually they want to get us off personal property, away from home ownership, and they want to get rid of cars. If any of you guys haven't seen the headlines, Al Gore's to spend $90 trillion to remove cars from all major cities. That's a headline. You can type it in and find it. They want to get rid of cars, and so how they do that is they make it real easy for us not to have cars. They build light rail, and then it doesn't pay for itself, so then the League of Cities and Towns says, oh, well, Mesa, if you want it to pay for itself, now you have to build apartment complexes right next to it. The people will come, and then it will pay for itself. So now they're building big apartment complexes right there, making it more difficult to build a custom home. So naturally, new home buyers are like, well, we used to be able to build a house in 2 months, find a lot, build a house, be done. Build it how we want. Now it takes a year to build a house from the starting process, and it costs over $30,000 before we can even break ground. I don't have that kind of money. That was my down payment on the house. I'm just going to rent. It makes more sense. So go live in a small apartment, no personal property.
Eventually, they'll come knocking on your door to check your house. And if your house isn't up to the code, then they'll tell you to get out. Right?
Yes, and they have been doing that in many places. People who have been trying to live off the grid, they are especially targeted at this point. They go in and they use the International Property Maintenance Code, which is one of the family of I-codes. And they go in there and they say, hey, your house says, the code says you have to have so many outlets on the wall. You didn't build your house with outlets because you wanted to live off the grid and everything. So your house is condemned. You're not allowed to live here. And they have done that already in the United States. Oh, Dad. Oh, go ahead, Dad, and then we'll come back.
Queen Creek passed the property maintenance code, but Gilbert didn't. So we
got two things in Gilbert that they haven't done. And the only reason Queen Creek isn't enforcing it right now, they don't have the money or the organization it says it has their own director and own department to start enforcing that property maintenance code, but it's already passed. So it's just a matter of time until everything there, and then to start getting rid of all the older homes and making people get off their land and go into apartments.
Yeah, so they're setting it up to have the power to kick everybody out who they want.
They'll go in and they'll buy out and they'll strip all the wiring out of the walls. So for the bishop, they can't use the power.
Yes, and I've heard.
Now that's typically in rural areas, not urban. So the code adoption, typically by township councils, is less likely to be intimidated by these external. But yeah, it's really humorous, the area of the country I grew up where you literally had people that had nothing more than a pump well and horse-drawn everywhere they went.
Yeah.
They literally were off the grid by religious exemption.
Yes, and so now it's getting to freedom of religion. If you're excluding the Amish from living here, they can exclude anybody from living there.
Right now in China, they've been doing this for a while. They're taking the farmers off of the land and forcing them to move into the city. Because part of the purpose of Agenda 21 is to keep you under the watchful eye of an agro-loving government. And let's face it, they love you. But they want you off land. And so what they're doing, they're replacing these workers with government workers. Because everyone knows farmers are just too independent. They can take care of themselves. And now you have a glut of these farmers that are living in the cities, and they don't have the skills to live in the city and find a job.
So then they have to get welfare.
They encourage them to build a light rail, which we know.
Which doesn't pay for itself. They go into debt. So then they have to be dependent on federal subsidies, which is federal control, and then there's no such thing as local government. They're nothing more than just a facade. Oh, right back here in the picture. What happens to them? So we don't deal a lot with trailers, so I don't know of all the codes and regulations. I know for building a car, there's all kinds of codes and regulations that are making cars a lot more expensive than they need to be as well. So I'm sure this federal takeover and it's all aspects of society. It's not just the building codes, it's like education, cars, healthcare. And so, but I'm not real familiar with mobile homes. Back here in the back. Yes, you can buy the books. In fact, my dad has infiltrated the ICC so he could get all their updates and all their books and stuff. But how much was the package of books? It was...
I had to pay $150 to get the free book.
Was that just one of the books? Because, and you just bought one of the books. So that's for one book, and there's 8 books. And so he didn't buy all the other ones. I'm not sure why. He should have bought all of them. So the older homes would be regulated in the International Maintenance Code unless you want to build an addition or change out a window or change out a water heater or change a light bulb. So if you want to do any of those things, then it's regulated by the code. And so technically you're supposed to get a permit. So if you want to change out a window, for example, you go down and get permission. They come out and they say, okay, you want to switch out a window? Oh, these windows aren't double pane low E energy windows. Without a permit, ooh, you can get fined for that. All this crazy. It's getting less and less of the grandfathering rights. They have made people like build a custom home. They want to build an addition, like a master bath addition. Then they come in and say, well, you have to switch out all your windows. How much does that cost? to tear out your windows, buy new ones, and install them, and make all the repairs. Do you think the people have the money to do that after they weren't planning on it? Then they go into debt because they don't want to go to jail, so they take out a bigger loan to put in all the windows, and that's happening all the time.
I was just curious about one home in, okay, this may be in San Jose, the Winchester Mystery House. It was built, I think, before all these codes were in. Do they still have to apply to do they still have to comply with these codes for that home?
For, if the plans were permitted and you got permission and you got a final inspection on the house, you're basically safe for the time being, except for the property maintenance code. Like in Gilbert, you don't have a property maintenance code. In Queen Creek, you do. They're not enforcing the property maintenance code right now fully in Queen Creek. They're holding off to enforce it, because if they enforced it, they would know they would have to deal with us. So existing houses, you don't have to bring up to code right now unless you change anything on it. And then legally, if they see you changing anything, your neighbor sees you, they turn you in, then they can have the inspector come out there, and then they can start enforcing all these aspects. Oh, right here first.
I live in a county island over in Mesa. How does that affect me? Because I don't come under the purview of Mesa, but...
So you're in Maricopa County. It's a Maricopa County island. That's where we draw probably half our work is in Maricopa County. They're on the 2012 code. We fought it, and they never proposed to make the energy code mandatory there, and so they approved it as optional. So they didn't have an energy code before. Now they adopted the 2012 energy code as optional, which we know the next step is to make it mandatory. So that's one thing to keep an eye on, because the next time around they're going to propose it as mandatory.
Any idea whether they have moved yet to move into the HOAs and get their help in doing this?
Okay, so the HOAs are a whole addition to this amount of tyranny. And the HOAs are interesting because that's where we as citizens enforce tyranny on each other, even worse than the federal government ever can. And so we've thought a lot about the HOAs and fight them as much as possible. In the scriptures it says that we should serve our neighbors and love our neighbor. I think we've heard of that commandment. It's the it says that the 10 commandments can be consolidated into two: love God and love your neighbor. Under those two fall all the laws that God has given us. So love your neighbor. So a lot of people in a false idea of serving their neighbor get on an HOA board and they mandate, they persecute, and what's the other word? They control their neighbors. They send them fines. Instead of going and helping them clean their yard, they send them a fine, and they say if they don't clean their yard, they'll send them to jail, or they'll fine them. And if they don't comply with that, then they have a bunch of different things they can do to you. So that's a whole different aspect. But I do believe that if we can't overcome the tendency to control our neighbors and overcome this tyranny that we suffer through our HOAs, then I don't think we can expect to have God's help to fight and overcome this tyranny that is coming down on us from the federal government and the world level. But I do believe if we can overcome the tendency to control our neighbors and start to serve our neighbors, then I think we can expect God's help to unite as a people and to regain our rights and fight for the Constitution and throw off this and win back our rights from the federal government, just like the Bundys did. I don't know if you guys followed that, but they were strong in their religion, in their way. They had prayers before they went against the feds, and they stood strong. The Bundys aren't ones to control their neighbors. I can guarantee that. And and their neighbors and friends united around them. How will it be today if society breaks down? Say the lights went out, an E-bomb went off, we have no power. In areas where we have strong HOAs, do the neighbors like each other when they're turning each other in and fighting each other? Some of the neighbors hate each other. If it wasn't for law and order, these neighbors would be shooting each other. And so we can expect that to happen when law and order breaks down because of the tyranny we've inflicted on each other through the HOAs.
You're going to have to fight this on city council and planning board. Legislature, we've got plenty of good concerns for this. Gilbert tried to make my son got a big yard over there, and all the trucking companies over there are conform to county regulations. Had a vice mayor that wanted everybody to pay and roll their lots. My son had cost him $500,000 and was putting on business. All the parking people in there got the bid together. We went in and talked to the mayor and the city council. They were going to pass the night they were going to pass it. The mayor backed up, said, wait a minute, let's talk about it. We got together with them and talked to them, they backed up. So that's what we got to do. We got to get involved.
You have to unite. So why didn't the founding, oh, go ahead, and then I'll share something.
I'll confess to being on an HOA board, but I ran on the board on the platform. I'm going to bring Main Street to the board and they bring to the home. There hasn't been a pleasant experience, and I've made some headway. In the meantime, it's kind of a nice, low-risk learning experience in how to fight.
Yes, in fact, yes, and I think if you get on into government, because government you can inflict tyranny on people, right? But if you get into government for the right reasons, or you get onto the HOA board for the right reasons, you can do a lot of good in teaching the correct principles. So HOAs, what could they be good for? Managing common property, which is your parks, maybe your pool, your entryway, stuff that you all share. That's a proper role. The government does it on streets, maintains the streets and the parks, and nobody complains so much about that. It's when they come under personal property is when it starts to become sinister. So why didn't the founding fathers foresee the building codes and protect us against it in the Constitution? Wouldn't that have been nice if they wrote something into it? Well, guess what? They did. So they did protect us from the building codes. But to know how they did it, we just have to read 20 pages. Because the Bill of Rights is in the end of the Constitution in this booklet here. The Fourth Amendment, does anybody know what it says? Can anybody quote it? Search and seizure, okay. That's close to quoting it. It's not much longer than that. But it says, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. So in the movie preview, did we see searches and seizures? They were about to bulldoze his house. I think that qualifies as a seizure. Unwarranted searches. The funny thing is government, because of this amendment, has no right to come onto your property without a warrant. But if you go and apply for a permit, then you sign a paper saying they can come on and search your property or inspect your property, and then they still don't come out until you call them and ask them, oh, please, code inspector, come out here as fast as you can to inspect my footings. Then they come out there and do exactly what you asked them to do. Without you calling them, they don't have the right to come out there. The founding fathers wrote it into the Constitution. So we do have a protection. It's just, can we win back our rights? Do we have the courage to stand up for it and win back our rights? So, go ahead.
All right, so I can be comfortable with that, with residential houses. 1, 2, maybe 3 stories. What about a 50 or 100-story commercial building?
What about the trades, say like the big towers that were built, the trade centers or the Empire State Building, were those built on codes? They were built well above the codes. Most custom homes now are built with good builders, are built well above the codes. The building of these buildings is what made us have the ability to write codes, because we learned from the building of these buildings and put it into the building codes. There's been the engineers, they refer to the building codes for their calculations, and they know how to build it. When something doesn't work, they quickly fix their calculations and they build it stronger next time. That's the solution. And with the building codes, many people think these keep us safe, these keep the houses from falling on us. Well, what's really happening out there is the code inspectors are now enforcing the green agenda more than they're enforcing the structural. They don't even check the footings, or they miss important bearing footings or posts, and the builder's like, oh yeah, we got to reinforce that. The engineer forgot to add an extra strap. And so the framer in the field says, oh, isn't there supposed to be a strap there? And they say, oh yeah. But they're like, oh no, now you have to go get it re-engineered. You have to get government approval to fix the problem. So now the government oversight is making it more difficult and harder to fix problems that we see in the field. And the same thing is the case for commercial. I don't know if you guys seen the new temple in Gilbert built. It's the tallest building in Gilbert. The code inspectors go out there and they look at it, the Gilbert, the LDS temple out there, and they look at it and they're like, you guys are good. It's well above the code. And that's the case for in a free market economy, when we're prospering and we have freedom. That's reality. The reality is, like for example, if we don't have an energy code in Queen Creek, are the houses going to be less efficient? We argue that they'll be more efficient with less regulation. The reason why is because you're not paying for the certifications, for the government oversight to come out there and do the blower door test. So you have a couple $1,000 extra to spend. What are you going to do with those $1,000? People spend it on efficiency and to make their houses look nicer. Most of the houses are built well above the code, but the code inspectors come out there and they nitpick it all apart and make you spend all this money on things that don't matter. So we believe that the energy would actually increase, the energy efficiency would increase more rapidly without all the government regulation. Because right now, when a new product comes out, a new mode of insulation, it is not allowed to be used until it gets approved by the ICC. It has to have an ICC report. There's many products that are coming out. Did you have a question?
More efficient, effective use.
Exactly. That's reality. Go back to the principle. The highest level of prosperity occurs when there's a free market economy and a minimum of government regulations. We're past the minimum regulations so far. A couple hundred pages of codes to regulate the structure and make sure there's something that's not going to start a fire. That's one thing. But when you get into thousands of pages of codes, it's not to keep us safe. That's how they sell it. They say to keep us secure and safe. And even if that were true, they would have to do it at the cost of our entire freedom. And we know that those who sacrifice freedom for security deserve neither, and they actually get neither. It's actually a lie to think that these building codes enforced by government keep us safe. Now, if we were not to mandate them, the entire book of codes, does that make the codes go away? The codes are still there. The engineers will still refer to them. If the guy you do your air wants to calculate it and doesn't know how to do it, he can refer to the code books to do it. But he's also allowed to make changes to it as he sees fit. If you want to change something, they can easily do that without all the government oversight.
The obvious question then, you do have people that violate the code right after they commit fraud. So we have a system to deal with that, don't we? The framework, they sued, restitution.
There's the contractors, registrar of contractors that's been around a long time. There's been no problem with them. They understand building and they protect the homeowner. That's another funny thing is the builders take full liability on a house for 2 full years, no matter what happens. The concrete cracks, the roof truss sags, a beam, a door no longer shuts because the beam sagged. The builder is liable for 2 full years to take care of that. Is the city inspector liable? He misses something, they're not liable for anything. And we've checked. Nobody's been able to win a case against them saying, you missed this on the inspection, will you fix it? Please, government, come out and fix my problem. They have no liability whatsoever. The builders do. The individual subcontractors have warranties. And there's already means that have been set up in the free market to take care of such problems. Is construction problem free? Would it be problem free without the government? No, but would we be able to prosper and progress? Would our innovation be stifled with less regulation? Like you said, it stifles regulation and makes it so it doesn't progress as fast as it could without the regulation.
First of all, we're under a corporate America since 1873, and that's where all this bureaucratic garbage is coming from. The other thing is that you can force them into a common law court, and with that thing, you can force them to have a jury in both the facts and the law, and it takes away from the judges. You got to be able to know what you're doing. You also be able to get only an elected judge. So there's a lot of things that we've got to overturn this. But besides what you read in the Constitution there have been multiple cases to the Supreme Court that says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and anything that is against the Constitution is null and void. Nothing.
Exactly, but it takes courage to back that up, because they'll threaten to throw you in jail for the smallest little violation in the code that was passed without being read or understood. So it's completely unconstitutional, so we have to stand up, but it takes a lot of courage to do that, like we saw on Bundy Ranch. My brother tried to run for mayor, and I think he got like 20% of the vote, or so. But, oh, you guys all voted for him? That's awesome. Well, Mesa is actually on the 2006 International Code. So they will plan on passing the 2012 and the 2015 codes. They can skip as many cycles as they want. They're updated every 3 years. But when you update the latest code, you get everything. So we need to pay attention. That's one thing we can do, is pay attention to the local. We haven't heard word of anyone passing it yet. Otherwise, we'd get the word out. But we could use all the watchdogs we can. Sometimes they pass it in a matter of a week or two, or sometimes we don't even know about it. 2012 code and 2015, 2018, every 3 years, the code cycle.
We had a conservative constitutional guy running for Tempe City Council. But you know who all got in there? Kubi. She's works at ASU. She's on sustainability. All these people that are no good made it in.
Yeah,
And our poor guy.
because we're not paying attention. So I'm going to turn the time over. I just want to end with one thing. Yeah.
What year did we change from the UBC to the international?
2000. In 2000, all the codes were consolidated into the International Residential Code, or International Building Code, which regulates commercial the same way. Just wanted to end. Many people ask, well, what can we do? Can we got to do something. This is coming down on us. It's attacking us. The truth is, I don't know what everybody else can do. This is our profession, and we know the building codes, and so we can fight it really good and get the word out. And we can use all the help we can in doing that. But everybody has their field of expertise and their sphere of influence. And that's all we did, is we just prayed. I just prayed and asked God to help me know, what can I do to best preserve freedom and liberty? And I acted on within my sphere of influence, and I did what I could to stop the energy code, and we stopped it in Gilbert. And I know that it's possible. I know we can beat this back, especially when we get the word out and we unite as a people and we trust in God. And so, if anybody was sincerely wanting to protect freedom and liberty and they prayed about it, I know God will inspire you to do what you can within your area of expertise and your sphere of influence. Sure. I'm very busy with 6 kids, and he forgot to say 6 kids so far. So, yeah. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to share this because we got to do what we can and getting the word out. Most people don't know Agenda 21 is being implemented through the building codes.
Last question.
I just shared it a couple weeks ago in North Anthem, and so we're just starting to get the word out. We just beat back the building codes last year. So a year and a half ago is when we first started really fighting the codes. So it's just building. People are waking up to the fact that ICC, the International Code Council, is not just your local building codes, your footings and electrical wires. It's much more than that. So.
All right, give a hand for Rusdon Ray. Excellent, Rusdon. Thank you so much. Very, very good. You know, one of the things that really resonated with me as he spoke was simply this. You're talking about making a change. Think about the difference between integrity and character. Integrity is not doing what's wrong. Character is doing what's right. So I've spent a lot of time talking with my children about this. I said it's got to be more than just having integrity. You've got to have character. When you see the kid being picked on at school, just because you're not picking on him doesn't really, okay, so you have integrity. You're not joining in the fight. But a person of character would step in and stop the bullying from happening. And I see that going on in America. You have so many people within the freedom movement says, well, I'm not out there violating anyone's rights, right? I'm not hurting other people. I'm not violating their life, liberty, property. But that's only a person of integrity. A person of character is going to go out and go on the offensive. And as Rusdon said, operate within their sphere of influence to have an impact wherever they can have an impact. So Rusdon, thank you so much for bringing that to the table. Absolutely fantastic.